All right, we have Randy Short here to speak for us. If you want to know, here's just a little bit about him. Born in Tullahoma, Tennessee, not too far away from here, but lived in Estill Springs. Okay. Then I guess moved to Winchester and spent some time. That's where he grew up and graduated from Franklin County High School. And then after finishing high school, 71, he spent some time in college at Freed Hardeman, Sunset as well. I don't know which one was first.
Freed Hardeman.
Okay, Tennessee Tech as well. And then finished a master's degree from Harding in 1993 in counseling. All right, and then now he also has a doctorate of ministry from the Theological University of America as well. So he has that's his education in terms of his experience. They moved, he and Kathy, here's Kathy right here in the corner. Kathy is in the process of finishing her doctorate right now. And it may happen anytime now. I'm sure, I guess there's it'll go for a little while, but she's very close to the end of that. And Randy and Kathy moved to Brazil in 1980, is my understanding, and they've spent most of the time since then living in Brazil. 29 years, 30. Are you in your 30th year yet? Coming up, right?
Coming up.
Okay. And so when they moved to Recife, there was one congregation that they were planting there, and now there's some 160 churches in that part of Brazil. So 165, we're still growing. So they have an immense amount of experience. Now I don't know your children. I have not met them well. You have 2 children?
3 children,
okay.
7 grandchildren.
Okay, and so there's just a little bit about Randy here. So really, really glad to have him here with us, and hope that you'll enjoy hearing what he has to say.
Bom dia. We speak Portuguese in Brazil. That means good morning. I may date myself by saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel a little bit like Admiral James Stockdale. Now, some of you will remember that he was the vice presidential candidate for Ross Perot, and some of you don't even know who Ross Perot is. So, but I remember when he stood before those cameras and they called on him, he said, "Who am I? Why am I here?" And this being the Vietnam Forum, that's kind of the way I feel. Who am I and why am I here? Because I know very little about Vietnam. I do know that Admiral James Stockdale spent about 10 years in Vietnam, though, during the war. So he knew a little bit about Vietnam, I'm sure. So as I said, we've been 30 years in Brazil, going on 30 years anyway. Next year we'll celebrate that 30th year. And 20 years we've been working with the Ebenezer Ministry Training School. Let me get that started. It's going to go on its own for a while. And mostly what I'm going to be talking to you about is what has happened this year. And the connection with Brazil and with what's going on here this week with the Vietnam Forum is the barriers, actually. And their work that they've done in Southeast Asia, and that I heard about, and then we got connected up as well through Jeremy in the beginning, and then Joey and the Berry family all together. And so became partners in the work there. And I'm going to show you that connection here in just a minute. But it's also through the Madison Church in Huntsville, Alabama, who is one of our partners in the work. And let me go ahead and move this on forward. And we work with the Ebenezer. We call it Ebenezer. We know how to spell Ebenezer. It's the EBNESR. That acronym actually means Escola Bíblica Nacional para Equipar Servos do Rei in Portuguese, but it's the National Bible School for the Equipping of Servants of the King. And the Bellevue congregation in Nashville, Tennessee helped us get that started almost 20 years ago now, but it's supported by churches in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, and several other individuals as well. So we're happy to have them in our support. We have graduates all over the Northeast region. I want to tell you a little bit about the Northeast region rapidly, because I know we don't have a whole lot of time today, but over the years we've graduated about 130 people, and they've gone out to 7 different states of the 9 different states in the Northeast region. Brazil is actually larger than the United States, the 48 adjacent states, at least when we add in Alaska, loses out there. Brazil loses out to us, but it's a huge country. You got to understand that. The 7 countries of Central America are smaller altogether in landmass than just the northeastern portion of Brazil. So you can see how large it really is. In fact, the states in northeastern Brazil are larger than the countries that you've probably heard oftentimes, but you may never have heard of Bahia, one of the largest states there in the northeast region, but it's larger than Guatemala that you have heard of, or Pernambuco, that is where we live, and it's larger than Honduras, or Ceará, that is larger than El Salvador. And so the 7 countries of Central America are smaller in population than many of the 9 states of Northeast, and yet Central American countries are much better known. But it's a vast region that needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the Northeast is the 2nd largest geographical region in Brazil. It's that blue region there. It has a population of about 54 million people. There are 9 states, and there are 1,794 different municipalities in that region. Here are our goals presently: to preach the pure and simple gospel of Jesus Christ. And I say the pure and simple gospel of Jesus Christ because there's a lot of people preaching gospels in Brazil, but it's certainly not the pure and simple gospel of Jesus Christ. And so we're there to do that to these 54 million lost souls in the Northeast, and to cover all 9 states with the good news of Jesus Christ, and to plant at least one congregation of the Lord's church in every one of those 1,794, if this will work, there they go again, 1,794 municipalities in the Northeast region. So our goals are large, very large, and the impact of Ebenezer, our training school, has already been really fantastic over these almost 20 years. There were 28 congregations of the Lord's Church in 1998 when we started the school, and as we mentioned already, today there are 165 congregations in those almost 20 years. Now, we haven't done all of that work. Of course, God deserves all of the glory, and but there are other missionaries who have worked there in the Northeast region as well. In fact, we have some right here in town, Roger and Teddy Copeland. We just ate breakfast with them this morning, and they worked in the Northeast region as well. So a lot of work has been done there, but there's still a lot to do. Remember, though, that our goal is to evangelize and plant a church, at least one in 1,794 municipalities, and though what we have done may look good, we do not have a congregation in even 10% of those cities there in the Northeast, so there's a lot of work to be done as well. We needed a better plan. Not that we weren't doing some good things and evangelizing quite a bit and starting churches, but we wanted to do better because that 1,794 number is big. And so about 3.5, maybe it's even 4 years ago, Jeremy, I started getting this email or Skype from some guy in Germany, and he's talking to me about doing mission work in South America and how he's got somebody who wants to help out. And so I thought, well, who is this guy from Germany? You know, talking about mission work in South America. And it was Jeremy, of course. He was over there working on his doctorate. And so we got hooked up there, and he was talking about the Madison Church there in Huntsville, who wanted to really try to do, as I understand it, you can correct anything I say here, Jeremy, but as I understand it, sort of what your family's been doing in Southeast Asia, they wanted to try to do in South America as well, the same kind of thing. And they wanted to know if I was interested in being involved. And of course I said yes. So there's the hookup right there. But then the World Cup came around, and where's Joey? Joey came down with his son to the World Cup. He did it on pretext of coming to talk to us about mission work, but it was really coming down to watch the World Cup, and I enjoy soccer too, so that's okay. We went to soccer games, saw the USA play there. We saw them beat. Did you go with me to Natal? You didn't go. You didn't see it. They beat Ghana. I saw them beat Ghana then in Natal there in the Northeast as well. But anyway, we did talk, and he started telling me some of the stories about Southeast Asia. One of them was Myanmar. And let me just put up here something about that. And here once again, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, I've based a lot of things we're doing in Brazil now on wrong information if I'm wrong. But getting the Christians there in the country to send friends and families, members and acquaintances to a centrally chosen location, to spend weeks during the off-season, I suppose between the planting season and the harvesting season, I'm not sure about that, but when they have when they have time to be able to do this, and then they would be housed and fed and taught the gospel, and those who were converted would be given some basic training as well, and Bible training, of course, and then they would return to their region and they would start the church. And as I understand it, when you started there was a couple of congregations in the country, and now there are about 100 congregations in that small country. And I thought, wow, man, I'd really like to do something like that in Brazil. But here's the problem. Brazil, this is the northeastern area of Brazil where we work, and so it's very different. It's not a mostly agricultural-based society. They have agriculture there, of course, but they don't have any off-seasons, really. They work pretty much around the year in agriculture in those areas where agriculture is important. And there are not weeks at a time when people are unoccupied that they could come in and study with us like that. And also the cost in Brazil. Brazil is a different kind of country. It's very costly in Brazil. And so to house and to feed those people for weeks and weeks, even if they were available, would not be productive. And so, wow. Too bad. Won't work in Brazil. Okay, but we needed a better plan. Not a better plan than anybody else's plan, just a better plan for Brazil we needed. So, one of you guys, I don't know which one of you, Jeremy maybe, said, in India we use shortwave radio. How about shortwave radio? It has worked great in India and other places, and it's not very expensive and can cover a lot of northeastern Brazil easily, in fact, all of Brazil. And so why don't we do that? So, well, I wasn't really gung-ho about it because I didn't know a single soul in all of Brazil, all of my acquaintances that had a shortwave radio, and I didn't have one. So I didn't think that was going to go, but I said, let's give it a try. So we tried it for 6 months. And we produced the programs there at our training school and sent them back to the States, to Miami, and they beamed those programs twice a week into Brazil. And guess what happened? We had one contact in 6 months from Cuba. A guy who spoke a little Portuguese in Cuba was listening to our program, and he wasn't on board. So we turned his contact over to someone there in the States to follow up on him. And then we had one more a little bit later who was basically, he did the shortwave radio as a hobby. And he filmed our little program being broadcast over his radio, put it on YouTube, and sent us the link so we would know it was getting to Brazil. So we do know that it was getting there, but we got no contacts in those 6 months. So we needed a better plan. So I remember something we did back in the 80s with postcards and Bob correspondence course. It was very successful. We printed out back then something like 60,000 of these postcards where people actually fill out their name and address on the postcard, stick a stamp on it, put it in the mail, come to us, and then we would send them Bob correspondence course. I said, why don't we do that? Why don't we try that? Maybe we'll try it at targeted cities that don't have a church instead of just all over the place like we had done before. So we got 5,000 of these postcards printed up. We also printed up street banners and posters, and we went to that city that we chose, and we canvassed that city, and we passed out these postcards, and guess what? No responses. So, it came down to the fact that people don't use the mail anymore in Brazil. They use email. They just don't do it, and so everybody's got a smartphone, and they're doing that. They don't even know where the post office is to go and mail something. It still exists, but, so we still needed something to change, to do things better. We want to evangelize that whole area. So evangelism itself was not the problem. In fact, we had been using a course called Let the Bible Speak for years and years with great success. As a matter of fact, this is from this year. This is one of our classes. They're in Recife, not in a city that doesn't have a church. Recife has about 26 or 27 different congregations, 4 million people there. But we can sign up dozens of people with little effort, and as many as 20% of those who stuck with us through that course would be baptized. This year, we had almost 100 people signed up in the beginning of the year, and we didn't have a room that would hold 100 people, so we had to divide it into 2 groups. And so that's how easy it is there in the city to get people. Of course, the course is 15 weeks long, and each week they study 2.5 to 3 hours with us, and they stick with us. Okay, over that time, most of them do. And so how could we do that in cities that had no Christians, no facilities, no easy way to make contacts, and spend 15 weeks there? That plan's not going to work. That plan's not going to work. Too bad. But you know what? I couldn't get Myanmar out of my head. 100 congregations when there were 2 before. And so I started thinking, how can we do this? There's got to be a way. So we started adaptation. Brazilians can't spend weeks studying the Bible, but maybe they could spend one intensive week where they would study the Bible morning, afternoon, and night. And we would use the Let the Bible Speak course that has been successful, but do it in an intensive course teaching all 45 hours in one full week. We could pay all expenses, food, housing, transportation. We would prepare great materials that would be used during the retreat and afterward. And we would even teach them songs during the week, during devotional periods, include a song book and a DVD with songs recorded and all types of audio and video Bible study aids in the material that we give them. And we would enlist Christians to help us recruit interested people to be our students from those cities that have no Church of Christ. And converts from those gospel meeting retreats would be sent home to begin the church in their cities with the support from those same Christians who had recruited them. They would have to agree to all of that. Would this modified Myanmar idea work? Well, last year, as a matter of fact, we started planning in 2016 to have our first one the first week in January. January is a vacation month in Brazil, so we thought that'd be a good time. Maybe people would be off work and they'd be able to do it. And so we planned for these 3 cities. Our test project, Victoria, Cabo, and Gravataí, very close, fairly close at least to Recife, and it'd be convenient for us for this test project. And we really didn't know how to recruit these students, but we figured it out. And so we would go out there and set up on a busy street corner, set up these little tents, put a sound system under there and start calling people in to receive information about this free Bible study retreat that they could go on, all expense paid, put up the banners and everything, attracted attention. We started signing people up. And so, although the recruiting went well, we didn't get hardly as many as we'd hoped for. We'd hoped for about 20 from each one of those, 20 to 25 from each one of those cities. There we go. But we did get a good group, and we got them together at our retreat center that we had chosen, which happens to be our children's home, which we have there in Recife as well, but they have one part of that that's reserved for retreat purposes, and so we were out there, very good facility, and brought the group out there by bus. We taught them, once again, morning, noon, and night. In the beginning, that same study that we've been using so successfully there in Recife. This is Ricardo Sobral. Teaching. In fact, he came in from the United States, got off the plane and went directly there and helped us in the teaching. I also did teaching during that intensive week. And on Thursday, 5 people said, we want to be baptized into Christ. And so we went out to the swimming pool, and there's Joabi, I baptized him, and there's Leandro. Let me talk quickly about Leandro. Leandro wasn't going to come. Well, he was going to come, and then he said, well, my wife doesn't want me to because we don't know you guys. In fact, that's one of the problems we've run into in recruiting. Somebody said, we didn't know if you were going to take us off and kill us and harvest our organs and sell them on the black market. So, but some did come, some backed out, but he was backing out because his wife didn't want him to go. And I said, go back and tell him to invite his wife to go along too. And so he invited his wife, and she said, okay, I'll go too. And so, but the day before the bus was coming around to get him, she backed out and didn't go. Well, during the studies, you would see him out there on the soccer field with his cell phone pressed up against it. Actually, he was out there because that's the best place in this particular place to get reception. And so he'd have his cell phone up there, and he was talking. I wouldn't know who he was talking to. He was talking to his wife. And he was telling his wife all the stuff he was learning in the retreat. Okay? I'm going to come back to him in just a minute. Then the next one down there, not very, I shouldn't have asked. Let me go back here. The one down in the left-hand corner there is Josinaldo. And Josinaldo and his wife decided to be baptized. And so I baptized Josinaldo into Christ, and I turned to him. I said, listen, you want to baptize your wife into Christ? He said, you mean I can do that? I said, the Bible says, disciples, go into all nations and baptize them, and you're a disciple, aren't you? You can baptize her, sure. He said, well, I've never done that before. I said, I'm here with you. I'll help you. I'll step you through it. So he baptized his wife into Christ. You know, that little teachable moment became so important, I didn't have any idea that it would. But later, all of these people wanted to know, you mean you don't have to be a pastor to baptize somebody? And so a teachable moment that was really great. And so there she is being baptized, and then one more was Anderson, who was baptized. The next day, here are all five that first day with me. And then the next day, Iraquitan. Iraquitan is a capoeira instructor. That's Brazilian martial arts for you guys who want to know about that. And he's an instructor. And he turned his life over to Jesus Christ the very next day. And his story is amazing as well. Now, they had one worship service with us because it's a full week. So we did that on purpose. We wanted to have the first worship service with these people. And then the next week, they started the church in his city. And I didn't ask him to do this, and it wasn't really necessary, but just to show you what kind of person he is, he had a little carpenter skills, and he built a pulpit. He cleared his living room out of all the furniture, borrowed straight back chairs, and filled his living room up with straight back chairs in the first service, the first few services actually. Not only that, he used that manual and those songs. He did not come from any kind of denominational background or anything. He actually came from Spiritism. So he didn't know any of our songs, but he used that DVD, learned songs, and by the end of January, he was leading singing in the new congregation. So that's just the kind of people that we're running into. Leandro, the one who was on the cell phone talking to his wife. So the next Sunday morning, I receive a WhatsApp. Now, you guys probably don't use WhatsApp, but in Brazil, everybody uses WhatsApp. And Leandro sent me a photograph, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. Okay? And so I asked him, and he said, I baptized my wife into Christ. Now, if we'd never had that little teachable moment, he probably would have thought a pastor has to baptize her, and he wouldn't have done that. But he went home and shared with her, and she wanted to be baptized into Christ as well. And I didn't pay a lot of attention to the photographs because they look a lot alike. But later I found out that's not another photograph of his wife. That's his sister-in-law. So he had taught his sister-in-law as well and baptized her into Christ. And so two brand new congregations got started. Well, here's the group. That's the whole group that was together for that week. And then Calvin and Santo Agostino. There's Leandro and his wife, and Josinaldo and Jacqueline, his wife, and some of the brethren who had committed to helping them. And then the church in Gravata. Now, Iraquitan is not in these photographs. It's a more recent photograph, but his pulpit is right up there in front. You can hardly see it, but I know where it is right up there in front that he made, way back in January. So with this success, we decided to repeat this intensive gospel meeting retreat over and over and over again as many times as we could. So this time, in 3 states, recruiting in 9 different municipalities where there was no Church of Christ. Okay, and we chose in Bahia, Camaçari, Simões Filho, and Vitória de Conquista, in the state of Pernambuco again, because our first one was in our state, Vitória de Santo Antão, Carpina, and Siriaé, and also in Ceará, Paracuru, Maranguape, and Pacatuba. And so here's what happened in these 3 states. In this next go around. 11 baptisms in CMTI. Pernambuco only had one. Our recruiting really didn't do too well in Pernambuco in the second time. And in Bahia, 8 baptisms. So there's one new congregation started in CMTI with prospects for others in the future because of this event. No new congregation in Pernambuco and 3 new congregations in Bahia. 20 baptisms, 4 new congregations, potential for other new congregations. And after 1 week, gospel meetings, this is what happened. So the baptisms associated with these gospel meeting retreats, who is helping us are our graduates from the school involved in all of these. Our staff, our teachers are all involved in these retreats as well, and are baptizing people. So we have, as I said, graduates pretty much all over northeastern Brazil, and so they're involved in this. This is a new congregation. It's a house church right now. We hope it'll grow in Maranguape that was established less than 6 months ago, I'm talking about, okay? Simões Filho, how much time do I have? I really got so much I'd like to tell you. Simões Filho was very different when we were recruiting there. I couldn't hardly believe it. They went there and set up their little tent and everything, and their flyers, and they were there with their clipboards with things to fill out and everything. People lined up. I couldn't believe it. Lined up to try to sign up for this thing. Now, a lot of them couldn't go because of work and school and other things, but they got a great number. They actually sign up everybody that wants to study because they can follow up on them later. So they signed up over 300 people standing in line wanting to study the Bible, wanting to go to this retreat. So a lot of them did go to that retreat. Now, that is actually the new church after the retreat. However, a lot of those people, not all of those are new Christians. A lot of those people are those contacts, those 300 contacts that they had, that they're inviting them and they're coming in and they're continuing to study with them, and that's just in August. So not even 6 months have gone by, and already a healthy congregation is established in Simões Filho. I was really wanting to know why they had so much receptivity in Simões Filho that we didn't have in other cities. For instance, there in Pernambuco, we tried the city of Carpina, and it was tough, man. I went out there the first time we tried to recruit people, and we talked to 3 people. People would not even stop and talk to us. It was so different. And we finally ended up with 7 people who committed to go. The day before the bus was supposed to come around and pick them up, we contacted them. And they said, yes, we're going. Come and get us. We'll be ready. We sent the bus around there. No one showed up. Paid for the bus. He did his job. But no one went from Carpina. So why is Simões Filho so different from Carpina? I still don't know for sure. But I got to asking around, and someone said, well, you know that Simões Filho is one of the most violent cities in all of Brazil. I didn't know that. Most violent cities in all of Brazil. So I get to thinking, well, maybe they're thinking they don't have any hope for tomorrow, and they better get prepared to meet their maker. I don't know what it was, but it could be that, because it really is a violent place. And then a neighboring city also had a great success rate. This is the first Sunday after the gospel meeting. Now, most of those are Christians who came over to help this new congregation, but the new converts are there as well, and they really underestimated the size of the place. You can't tell, but most of those people are sitting out. Fortunately, it wasn't raining that day, or sitting out under the clouds. So anyway, that congregation as well is doing really well. This is another picture. Not all of these are new converts, but it's Christians from the city of Salvador went out to Vitória da Conquista to help them canvass the city to have more contacts to continue to teach that Let the Bible Teach course there. These don't have anything to do with those intensive studies, but 2 other congregations were started by our graduates this year. Actually 3, I'll tell you about the third in a minute. Duca Barros out in the state. If you could see those Google photographs, that little Iati Pernambuco is out in the desert. A lot of you may not know this, but a vast interior of the Northeast especially is desert land. It's not lush tropical forest like you might imagine, and like we see in the movies and everything with the anacondas and the big snakes and all that kind of stuff, the wild Indians and all that. It's desert. It's more like Arizona or even Nevada. So imagine a Church of Christ in every city in northeast Brazil. I really believe, I have the vision that northeastern Brazil can become like the southeastern United States as far as Church of Christ is concerned. I really believe it can become like the Bible Belt of Brazil because the receptivity is there. This slide is just to tell you, as a matter of fact, let me say that we have a display back here, and all of these books, these 10 books are back there if you want to take a look at Portuguese. The Portuguese language is a lot like Spanish, but someone asked us to publish Muss on a Shovel in Portuguese some years ago. We didn't, just about a little over 2 years ago. We didn't have money to do that, so they helped us raise the money. It's fairly easy because the book was fairly popular here in the United States, especially at that time. So we did that. We got it professionally translated, printed up 5,000 copies. By the way, we give everyone who attends one of those gospel meetings a free copy of that book, but we also sell it to brethren for them to use in evangelism, so money comes back in. Oh, what are we going to do with this money coming back in? Well, here's another book. Why don't we print that? And then we're selling it, and so money's coming in. So, well, here's another book. Let's print that. I can't believe I'm even saying that. 3 years ago, if you had asked me, are we going to be in the publishing business in Brazil, I would have said, no way. And so in just a little over 2 years, we published 10 books. And I'm translating one right now. Actually, we have some translated already. So we're going to, because it's another way of getting the gospel of Jesus Christ out to these people. And they're buying our books. They're receiving our books when we give them away. So just want to tell you a little bit about that. We're that kind of folks. If we see something that works, if we see something that's good, we're always looking and ready to use it to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. We don't know what the future holds, but we can imagine. You know, I believe that we should be imagining. I started attending the Church of Christ 9 months before I was born, because my parents were Christians, and my father's parents up here at Warrensburg, Tennessee, not too far from here, were Christians as well. So that's my background. When in that little country congregation that I went to, New Center Grove Church of Christ between Winchester and Tullahoma, Tennessee, on the old Tullahoma Highway. New Center Grove. My parents are buried out back. Kathy and I have 2 lots out back. We may be in Brazil when that happens. I don't know if they'll bring our bodies back here or not. But anyway, I remember Parker Henderson. That little congregation held Parker Henderson. And he would come around with those Kodak carousel slide machines. And I, as a little boy, was set on the edge of my seat. Wow. I had no clue how much he was influencing me. I really did. And then John Payne, who worked in New Zealand, they helped him. So he would come around and he would show his slides and everything. Wow. Man, you know, I didn't know he was influencing me. And then my dad, when I was a junior in high school, he said, I want to be a missionary. Sold out everything we had. Moved to Canada. 7 kids, 5 of them were already married and out of the home, so it's just me and my little brother. He moved us up to Canada, do mission work, work with 2 congregations, 2 small congregations up in Canada. My dad influenced me a whole lot. The sacrifice that we went through then, I didn't really realize that. I never really intended to be a missionary. But with all those influences, how could it be anything but? There's a passage of scripture I'm ending with here. And it's about imagine. Not all versions use the word imagine in this particular passage, but it's 2 of my favorite verses in all the Bible, outside the direct words of Jesus Christ. But it's from Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 and 21. And I can really look back at my life and I can see that God has been active in my life, my ministry, my family's life. And it's, let me pull that verse up here. You know it, I believe. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more, some versions say infinitely more, and that's true, than all we ask. And sometimes I think, what am I asking for? Vietnam, let me type Vietnam in here. 6 congregations there, if I remember correctly, 6, 7. Big country, a lot of people. Are we asking for 6 congregations, or are we asking for 60? Are we asking for 600? Are we asking for 6,000? What are we asking for? Man, I think we need to think big. Imagine. The next one says, a lot of verses says, ask or think. But really, that's using your imagination. What do you imagine? What do you imagine about Vietnam? What can it be like? As far as the church is concerned, as far as the gospel of Jesus Christ, the number of Christians. And this next phrase we've got to always remember, according to His power that is at work within us. I'm just a hick from Tennessee. Estill Springs. You may not have even ever heard of Estill Springs, where my parents were living when I was born in Tullahoma Hospital over there. But it's God working in us. We got to give Him. And He goes on to say, we got to give Him all the glory. To Him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. Let God work through you to be a blessing to many, many, many people around the world. Thank you. Thank you for your time and interest in what we're doing. God bless you.